Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. First Lady Jill Biden kicked off her husband's re-election effort last night by blasting Republicans as MAGA maniacs. She was in Los Angeles as her husband's substitute and claimed that if Donald Trump wins, chaos will return to Washington. Trump, meanwhile, is warning that Biden is destroying the country. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is sounding more and more like Trump 2.0. He is already mapping out his first moves if he wins the presidency, and they are Trump-like ideas, including moving agencies out of Washington. On Capitol Hill, House Republicans failed to punish Congressman Adam Schiff for his role in impeaching Trump, but they did it to themselves when 20 Republicans voted against censure. And in the annual congressional baseball game last night, it was red over blue again as the GOP beat the Democrats 16-6. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
America's Voice Live, America's fastest growing news program. With Steve Gruber.
We've got to put America first. You do that by voting and bringing your friends to do the same.
Delivering the latest news, observations, and opinions. With the entire Real America's Voice team, America's Voice Live starts now.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today is Thursday, June 15th. Let's get to today's top story, shall we? The FBI continues to slow walk anything related to the wrongdoings of anyone with the last name of Biden. Mark Lauder will join me with the details coming up shortly. Also, Adam Schiff dodges being censured with the help of 20 Republicans. The GOP is a mess. If there's anyone that deserves to be censured, it would have been Adam Schiff, but that's what you get, rhinos. And then later, one of the Rav families has a new book coming out. Charmaine Nugent has a new book called Killer House. She'll join me to talk about it a little bit later. Charmaine, good friend of mine for years. So speaking of rhinos and so forth, newsflash. Steve Gruber is too liberal. Steve Gruber, this guy, is a rhino. I hear this kind of nonsense pretty much every day. If I don't take the exact position demanded by some ideologues, that I'm branded as a rhino and bashed as part of the problem. Can you imagine that? I am too liberal. Well, that's true, my friends. We have some very serious problems in this country because that means those of us on the right, and yes, I still believe I'm on the right. Why? Because I am. But if I'm too liberal, we stand very little chance of ever winning another election at any level, ever. If I'm the problem, or people like me are the problem, then we won't elect a dog catcher, if that continues to be the mindset of those on the hard right. You see, I was canceled this week from a radio station I've been on for years, and it was because they said I'm too liberal. This is what some of the listeners said they heard some clown say in the air. However, in this case, the clown happens to be a program director, so he made the very poor choice to silence me as we're heading into another critical election year. I have by far the biggest statewide radio network in Michigan, more than 30 affiliates, and winning important races is critical. Therefore, having loud, common-sense voices is critical. But the thought police don't care about that, apparently. If you don't adhere to their strict orthodox views, they will cancel you, just like any good little liberal would do on the left. So I'm sure you're wondering now, what were my thought crimes? What were those thought crimes that got me canceled by a guy who was among those screaming about cancel culture and how terrible it is? And yes, that is the height of hypocrisy, but I digress. Anyway, my crimes. I recently railed against Michigan Republicans for wasting time, theirs and mine, by introducing a constitutional carry bill, which they did last week. It's a complete waste of time because Democrats control the House, the Senate, and of course you have Governor Whitmer. She's never going to sign such a thing. This is an utterly futile event, and it will go exactly nowhere. Totally futile. It's virtue signaling to the Second Amendment crowd, and it's pointless because the Second Amendment crowd's already with us. And because the Speaker of the House is a Democrat, it won't ever be put on the floor for a vote. It goes nowhere. Now, to be fair, honestly, I'm not a fan of constitutional carry, but I also don't oppose it. You see, I think it's fine for people to get trained to use guns properly. I was. I believe having a gun is an incredible responsibility, a tremendous responsibility to have that kind of power in your hands. And I think some extra training can never hurt. Like I said, I don't oppose constitutional carry. I'm just not a big fan. And for that, I got called an anti-gun liberal. Really, me. Anti-gun. which of course is completely absurd. You would know that if you bothered to find out anything about me. My next crime? Well, I suggested that Peter Meijer, a former one-term Republican congressman who voted to impeach Donald Trump, might be one of the few choices Republicans have to win the Senate seat being vacated by Democrat Debbie Stabenow. Now, other than the completely foolish vote by Meijer, which was wrong to impeach Trump, which I said at the time that it was wrong, and it still is wrong. It was the wrong decision on his part. But besides that, Meijer has some things to offer. First of all, his name, Meijer. You see, Meijer supermarkets were started in Michigan. They're now in something like 20 states with a couple hundred stores. So here, Peter Meijer is a name that everybody knows to start with, and name recognition is very important. I'm talking about getting candidates that can win. The Meijer name also comes with a pile of cash, as you can imagine, and let's be honest, being able to self-fund is a very important piece of the puzzle when you understand how much money these seats take to win. This could easily be a $10 million Senate race, maybe more. Meijer is also a bit more centric, as you heard me say, or if you prefer, he might be a borderline rhino, which, like it or not, gives him a better chance in a purple state to actually win a statewide race. And that is better, a lot better than the alternative of Alyssa Slotkin, who is far, far left. Now, the hardcore conservative candidates got clobbered in Michigan in 2022. So if you want to put the far-left Democrat Alyssa Slotkin and others like her out to pasture, you have to find someone who can attract votes from the middle. That's right, the middle. By the way, Meijer is also a veteran. Also a positive from where I stand. Now, I was also accused of not supporting the new Republican chair in Michigan, and that simply is not the case either. But when you're dealing with a cancel culture on the left or the right, facts, well, they don't matter. It's all about the narrative. And the people become, keyboard warriors. I've said many times that the Michigan GOP is in tatters. And do you know why? Because it is. I've also been clear that's not the fault of the new chair, but I'm not sure she can fix the problem. You see, party chairs have one job. Do you know what that is? If you're a Democrat chair or a Republican chair in any of the states, you have one job, raising money. That's true in every state, and it's especially hard in Michigan right now. So there's the list of my thought crimes. And for that, I've been called a rhino, a liberal, a Democrat, someone who's bought and paid for, someone who's being bullied by Democrats and caved in on these issues. Of course, none of that's true, but it's where we are these days. Sad. So how angry were the thought police? Well, like I said, for supporting some training and a background check before getting a concealed handgun permit, and pointing to someone who might actually be able to win a U.S. Senate seat for the Republicans and not the socialists, and pointing out how damaged the GOP is in my state, I was banished from a small talk station in northern Michigan. Doesn't really mean a lot, but it makes a great point. Because it is this kind of fighting among those that should work together to defeat Joe Biden and the Democrats that is instead leaving us short. Here's the problem with rhinos, by the way, just so we're clear. The problem with rhinos is very simple. You can't win with them because they're going to do some dumb things like protect Adam Schiff. And you can't win without them because, again, like it or not, you need those votes to get the seats away from the socialists. And while I'm on it, and I know some of you are not happy with me right now, and that's okay too, I'm here to jumpstart the conversation today. So while a few of you are incorrectly calling me rhino or whatever, let me ask you folks directly some questions, all right? For those of you old enough to remember, I want to ask you this. Did you vote for Bob Dole? How about John McCain or that other guy right there, Mitt Romney? Did you vote for those guys? You see, I know you did, most of you, and I know why. Because it was better than the alternative at the time. And they're all rhinos, each and every one of them. And that's what I'm saying. We need to include some of these people in the conversation, not call them names. It's what we have to do to win in many cases. It's what I call a necessary evil. Insulting people, just as a general rule, usually doesn't get them to vote for you. Just saying. Democrats have always been the party of lockstep and do not get out of line or they will cut your foot off. Democrats walk lockstep together and crush Republicans, oftentimes. Republicans, on the other hand, have always been a party that has discussions, a party that has different ideas and rarely a consensus. It's like herding cats. So whether you like it or not, I'm going to say things that you don't agree with sometimes, and that's okay. You're entitled to be wrong from time to time. But we can't lower ourselves to acting like run-of-the-mill Democrats. We can't. And the cancel culture warriors who despise free speech and open dialogue, we can't be that. As I keep telling you, we need more free speech, more ideas, more conversations, not less, more inclusion, if you will. If you think calling your fellow voters names and trying to silence them is a good idea, sorry, but you're part of the problem. And me personally, I'm working to win elections and be part of the solution to save this great country before it's too late. If you don't like that, well, I don't care. And look, I get it. I don't like rhinos either. Like I said, they could not even get together and vote to censure Adam Schiff, giving Democrats another win. It's disgusting. It happened during the same week that Donald Trump was being dragged into court and persecuted because he's a political rival of a Democrat. But unfortunately, the reality is we need some of those votes in these blue states, in the state legislatures themselves, on Capitol Hill. Otherwise, the Democrats will continue to march in lockstep and win, and we'll get things like a weaponized FBI. It feels more and more able to lie to us, like the FBI deputy director did when speaking to Senator Marsha Blackburn just this week. Listen to this exchange.
So you chose to redact the fact that there are 17 voice recordings, 2 of those with the now president. You chose to redact that and not to give that to House oversight.
I have no idea if there are voice recordings or not. What I will tell you with respect to the document, the document was redacted to protect the source, as everyone knows.
Well, then,
and this is a question of life
my
and death,
time has expired.
It's clear we have 2 standards of justice in America, one sympathetic to the left and one that wants to stamp out the right using the law. It's sickening. But this is what happens when Democrats take power. And if you don't vote, you're endorsing that too. They have become the party that's openly dictatorial, not just hiding behind nice names like, quote, democratic socialism. That party is literally transforming America into something it was never meant to be, and fulfilling that ominous promise Barack Obama made years ago, that he would fundamentally change America. Well, he did, and he still is. It's sickening to me what they're doing, and I know it is to you too, and that's why we must win elections. And they are doing all of this because they're successfully dividing Americans. Hell, they're dividing Republicans. The Republicans are infighting, calling each other's names like rhinos and so forth. And they know if they continue to do that successfully, they will always win. And yet they still claim under President Biden that he is a uniter. Oh, yeah, he's bringing America together. Listen.
He's been very clear when he ran in 2020. It was about bringing the nation together, right? The soul of the country. That's something that's still a priority for this president. He's had multiple remarks on that particular issue.
And they're going to continue to divide based on race and anything else they can find because they see that it works. The next plan, of course, is reparations. You think it's crazy? So do I. But they're coming. Listen.
As it relates to reparations, I saw just moments ago Cori Bush's resolution. We haven't reviewed the proposal yet. It's a new proposal, so we'll take a look at it. So I can't comment on that specifically. But the president has been really clear as it relates to reparation. He wants to see a study of reparations and studying the continuing impacts of slavery. He believes that is incredibly important.
Why are they doing all of this? Simple. Because they will do anything under the sun to keep a hold of power, anything, because they want to have power, hold power, and most of all, they want to exercise power, even if it leads to violence, even if they have to jail a political opponent or 2 or 10 or 100, even if they destroy America on the way, because they will take being leader of the ashes over not being in power at all. They will lead over the ashes of this once great nation over not being in power at all. Let that sink in. That's why Republicans must get on the same page. We must. We're facing an incredibly beatable opponent in Joe Biden. And the news networks, they've actually figured it out, too. They know how vulnerable he is. If you don't believe me, listen to this little soundbite.
The best case against Trump is electability. And it seems like that is just every Republican tries to make this argument, Jim, and it doesn't look like it's had any impact.
And I think one of the reasons it does is if if Joe Biden had a really high approval rating right now, and he looked really, and the economy's roaring, and everything's going great, and inflation isn't, nobody's worried about grocery prices. If everybody felt great, then maybe like, hey, hey, Republicans, we can't botch this. We really need to be.
There's this perception that anybody can beat him.
Yeah, and I think it's conceivably that when you have an 80-year-old president who tends to mumble and meander and tell old stories about corn pop and stuff like that, and the economy's not great, you never know what's going to happen between now and 2024. Biden could get beaten by Trump.
This is why I think Trump won it in 2016, because of that same perception. Yes, he's less electable, but they didn't think he was unelectable because they thought, well, anybody can beat Hillary.
And the feed on Getter just totally underscores everything I've said. Joe Biden is beatable, but Republicans need to get on the same page in order to do it. It's pretty simple, actually. That's the only way we can start to take back America and restore what she is supposed to be. That's how we make America first again. And that means, she'll have to be nice to some rhinos along the way. Sorry, but that's the way it is, because rhinos are far better than socialists. They're a better choice. They are the better alternative. Now, you can sit here and call me names. It's okay. I'm a big boy. I can take it because I know what it's going to take to win. I know I'm going to have to hold my nose to make it happen. But this country means enough to me that I will get on the same page with people that I don't agree with 100% of the time to make sure I do put out and get rid of the people that I do disagree with 100% of the time, and that is socialists, liberals, Democrats, Maoists, Stalinists, and the whole damn list. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'll be back after the break. Why is Congress having to do the FBI's job? Shouldn't the agency be the ones holding him accountable? Mark Lauder is the Chief Communications Officer, AFPI. Join me next to discuss this on America's Voice Live. Well, it seems more and more clear every day that the FBI is covering for the Biden administration and slow-walking any investigations into him or the family or anything else. The FBI deputy director was on Capitol Hill a few days ago testifying in front of the Senate. He was asked some questions about covering for the Bidens, none of which he was inclined to answer, of course. Listen.
Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States, has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
The document has already been released pursuant to a subpoena to the House Oversight Committee to meet
Will you
the
release the
request.
document to the public? It's unclassified. Don't you think the American people have a right to see it?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
And it extends even further than that because the FBI wouldn't even say if they were investigating the Bidens at all. Here's more.
Did you investigate in any way, shape, or form these allegations?
Senator, once again, I'm not going to comment.
So you're not going to say whether you did your job?
We do our job to the very best of our ability.
Well, not here. You're not answering a single question to the American people. And you may think this is esoteric. I promise you, millions of Americans are concerned. You know who isn't concerned? Not a single Senate Democrat. We're going to go through this whole hearing. Not one Democrat will ask a question about this. You know who else isn't concerned? The corporate media, who is joining with the Democrats in covering up this evidence.
You know, I did thoroughly enjoy Ted Cruz's outburst there. Why is Congress having to do the FBI's job, and will the Bidens be held accountable? Joining me now is Chief Communications Officer at AFPI and former Special Assistant to President Donald Trump, Mark Lauder. And Mark, I want to get to all that in a second, but I do want to ask you something about the conversation we had to start the program today. In order for Donald Trump to win in 2016 and for him to win in 2024, he is going to have to attract people in the middle. You heard me talking about, rhinos and name calling and so forth. What do you say? Do we need to get past that? Do we have to attract people in the middle? Do we have to make friends with people that maybe aren't ideologically perfectly aligned with us in order to win the White House again?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. There are not enough conservatives or liberals to elect a candidate from either side. So you have to fight over that 10, 12% in the middle. That's always been true. It will always be true. And to be honest with you, Steve, as I was listening to your monologue earlier, I don't care what your feelings are on a lot of other policies. If you pull the lever because you want low gas prices, low grocery prices, you want an end to the crisis at the southern border, you want parents to have their voices respected in schools and not have their children groomed secretly behind their backs by the teachers' unions, and if that's what it takes for you to pull the lever for the America First candidate, whoever that will be, then so be it. Do it. Please. I welcome you. I'll work on you on the rest of the issues later down the road.
There you go. And that, I am America First, Mark. That's a fact. And everything you just said there, I guess I'm not a liberal. Thank you. I needed an intervention there. Greatly appreciate that. All right. Now, back to this double standard, the deputy director of the FBI. Well, I can't answer that. That's redacted. It's an ongoing investigation. It makes me think that part of the investigation that was started against President Biden was done intentionally just so they could use that answer. Oh, we can't answer that question. Oh, that's off limits. Nope, can't talk about that. I mean, come on. What a joke.
Well, and it reminds me back in the heady days of the now debunked witch hunt, Russia, where everything leaked every single day. You had sources from the FBI. You had sources on the Hill who were leaking so-called classified documents. You had Adam Shifty Schiff lying to the American people about the documents he so-called saw but don't exist. All of those things were happening to fundamentally weaken Donald Trump throughout his presidency. And now turn the tables, and they are doing everything they can. They covered the indictment of President Trump for 291 minutes on the network news. They gave 0 minutes to this ongoing scandal in the making involving Joe and Hunter and James. Well, the whole Bidens, all of them.
I saw earlier today, maybe it came out last night. I look at so many and read so much different sources that $10 million showed up in an S corporation controlled by the Bidens in 2017, which, strangely enough, Mark, lines right up with what the whistleblower says about $10 million coming in at that time from Burisma. I mean, if this was Donald Trump Jr., if this was any Republican at all, but mostly a Trump, This would be wall-to-wall coverage in the nightly news. It would be special hearings in front of Congress. It would be Democrats sitting in front of every television camera they could find 24 hours a day, and yet they just ignore it. It's not just the weaponization of the Department of Justice, it's the blinding of the Department of Justice to not see any of this. That's just as bad, is it not?
And it's also malpractice from the media. I mean, give me a break. There is so much evidence out there that Chairman Comer and the House Oversight Committee have already discovered. When you start to put together $5 million in bank wires from multiple LLCs to 9 different Biden family members, along with the Hunter Biden laptop, along with this 1023 whistleblower form that said that there was supposed to be $5 million or $10 million routed through multiple LLCs that would take 10 years to uncover. Guess what? That's all smoke. It is the Justice Department and the media's job to look for the fire, and they're not. If Woodward and Bernstein worked for the New York Post rather than the Washington Post, we would have never known about Watergate because it would all just been brushed under the rug as some conspiracy theory. And any journalist who's worth the ethics of their profession should be looking into this, demanding answers, and yet they're just running cover for the big guy.
Yeah, the big guy who we now know without question is Joe Biden. How serious, and obviously, Mark, I think it's incredibly serious, but I'll give you the last question. If this is true, because I've wondered for a while, and I've discussed it on this program and others, that part of the play here by the people that are actually running the show in Washington, which is not Joe Biden, let's be honest, are trying to figure out a way to get Joe Biden knocked off the playing field and out of the race, and Donald Trump knocked off the playing field and out of the race. They want to get rid of both of these guys. Trump because he upsets the apple cart, and Biden because he doesn't have any idea where he is and they don't trust him to do their bidding. I think they're trying to get rid of both of them from what I see. I'll give you the last word.
Well, I don't think they're trying to get rid of Biden, and that's why they're running so much cover for them for one clear reason. Kamala is a complete failure. And she's utterly unelectable. So they need to keep him around because if he is removed, you're not going to stop Kamala. And there's no way to get Bernie or Gavin the nomination. So, they would be stuck with Kamala Harris, who's a horrible candidate, couldn't even make it to the first votes before she had to withdraw. They do want to take out Trump, but they're going to run as much protection for Biden as they can until he's their nominee, till he's reelected, and then they'll take care of it.
Yeah. Mark, greatly appreciate your insights as always. I think that they have a couple of options, but we'll see. I don't think they trust Joe Biden, but time will tell, my friend. Greatly appreciate seeing you again.
Good to talk to you, Steve.
All right, after the break, old Adam Schiff has slithered his way out of a mess again, this time with the help of Republicans. That story and more after the break. Well, are you ready for another round of failure theater? A resolution put forth by Representative Anna Paulina Luna to censure Adam Schiff failed after 20 Republicans joined with Democrats to kill it. Unbelievable. Here are the names of those who defected, and with that, the GOP managed to miss yet another easy layup because the party can't manage to get out of its own way. To be sure, there's blame to go around. The most obvious culprits are the Republicans who didn't just suck it up and vote yes, regardless of whether they thought the censure resolution was flawed or not. I understand there were concerns over the legality of the fine and what kind of precedent it would set. So what? It's a censure resolution, not a constitutional amendment, and no one deserves to be censured more than Adam Schiff. He lied and lied and then lied some more. That's the problem with the modern Republican Party, perfectly illustrated. People are getting tired of the ineptness. People are getting tired of moderate Republicans who won't grow a backbone, and people are getting tired of opportunists who can't think past their next cable news hit to actually get things done. Yes, the Republican Party is a mess, but right now it's our best alternative, because the alternative to that is the socialist sitting in the Oval Office. The Federal Reserve elected Wednesday not to raise interest rates. Maybe a good idea, maybe not. The decision to hold the federal funds rate at 5 to 5.25% was unanimous, though the median rate is forecast to rise to 5.6% by the end of 2023, with a drop back to 4.6% by the end of 24. In March, the Fed elected to raise the interest rate by another 0.25% amid continued fears of a recession. That fear is still coming. The news comes following the May Consumer Price Index report, which indicated inflation has been cut almost in half from its 2022 peak, though it remains high at 4%. In connection with the decision, the Fed issued a statement citing a modest expansion of the economy with robust job gains and a low unemployment rate, though acknowledging that inflation remains elevated. Though they held the rate steady, they signaled additional hikes may be looming. Why? Because they are, and the recession is coming. Now, coming up after the break, Charmaine Nugent, a rock star on her own, and quite an accomplished author, too. She is already a New York Times bestselling author with books like Married to a Rock Star, Kill It and Grill It, as well as 4 Minutes to Be Happy. Well, she has a new book out. She joins me next to talk about it. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to America's Voice Live. Well, my next guest is somebody I've known since the 1990s, believe it or not. She's a member of the Rav family and has a brand new book coming out. She's already a New York Times bestselling author with books like Married to a Rock Star, Kill It and Grill It, as well as 4 Minutes to Be Happy. You can probably guess who I'm talking about, none other than Charmaine Nugent, whose new book is Killer House. There it is, Killer House. It's out now. She's also somebody who tried to kill me on live television in the 1990s. I don't know if she remembers, but I guess you did. You tried to kill me.
I put you through a workout, and I remember you not being able to keep up. So
I know. Yeah, we did a spinning class there at 6 a.m. Yeah, I thought I was going to die on live television. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. Anyhow, Charmaine, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So tell me about this book, Killer House. I mean, I know some of the backstory because I'm familiar with some of the things you guys went through, but for the audience that is not, share the story.
Well, it's not a glamorous story, but our home that was once featured on MTV Cribs was contaminated with toxic mold between the walls. We never saw anything. We just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I had to become my own investigative sleuth because no doctors could help me. They just kept giving me medication for migraines and insomnia and things like that. And Ted and I and Rocco got sick. And we ended up demolishing our home. And I am living to tell about it. I recovered, and I want to share this story with other people because I guarantee you, Steve, it's happened to you or somebody you know, and this book will change your life.
So I want to start with, you're in your house. Beautiful house, like you said, MTV Cribs. It was featured as a fabulous place. I've been there, and beautiful property, just gorgeous. Things start going wrong. You don't feel well. Tell me about how all of a sudden you're like, something's not right, Ted. Something's not right here. And the kids were around, of course, as well. What happened?
Yep. Well, I was once named Detroit's most physical female, and you came to my aerobics studio back in the 90s. I've been teaching group fitness classes since 1980. I should have been the walking poster child for health and fitness, and yet I got to the point where I could barely walk up a flight of stairs. So we ended up getting tested and determined that Ted and I both had 4 different types of mold in our bloodstream. And I also was diagnosed with having pre-emphysema, and I didn't smoke. So I ended up going to Texas to the Environmental Health Center that treated me from the inside out, and I did alternative remedies or functional medicine is what they call now, like vitamin IV, oxygen, infrared sauna. I was doing that 25 years ago. So I want to share with people all about the methods I use, the natural methods I use to remediate and recover, because I promise you, toxic mold is in your life, and you need to recognize the symptoms.
So where did it come from? I mean, I'm a Michigan guy. I love mushroom hunting. I like being out there and finding fungus. Not that fungus. We don't want anything to do with this one at all. How does it get in the house? Where does it come from? How does it get a foothold?
Bad builders. I'm just going to say it. People who don't care, or they cut corners. And what happened was we never saw anything. I was kind of OCD about cleaning, but it was literally, Steve, raining between the walls. And we kept getting sicker and sicker. And we realized that, wow, when we go on tour and we're in London, of all places, we felt great. We could sleep finally. So it took a lot of investigation. By the time we figured it out, nobody was talking about toxic mold 20 years ago. And so we had the house tested several times before we found an expert and said, literally, this doctor, a toxicologist in Ann Arbor, literally wrote on his little prescription pad, "Get out of the house." And we did. It was devastating, and I don't want anybody to go through what Ted and I and Rocco went through. We lost everything. But again, I'm here to tell about it, and I want to share the story with other people so it doesn't happen to them.
So once you left the house, and that was the time you moved to Texas, right? That's when you finally said, look, we can't be here. And you went to Texas and set up there. How long until things started to change? You know, you went on tour, things changed. You could breathe, you could sleep. How long after you were away from that environment, from the spores, I would suppose, in the air, whatever the mold is putting off, when did things improve?
Well, it takes several months and maybe even years. And I got to tell you, 20 years later, I still have bad days because we can't get away from toxins in our air, soil, and water. And so those of us who have had compromised immune systems. I mean, you saw what I was doing back then. I got to the point, Steve, where I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. So I have to now really create boundaries. And it took overall, I think, about a year using this functional medicine, changing my diet, juicing all the time. And now 80% of what I eat and what I do is very clean. 20%, I like chocolate chip cookies and things like that. So I think life is meant to be worth living and enjoying. And I want to live life to the fullest. And I want you guys and your audience to as well.
So it's the 80-20 rule. I mean, a lot of people live by the 80-20 rule. 80% good, 20%, a chocolate chip cookie here or there. But you can't have 80% chocolate chip cookies and everything else because then, diabetes kills, obesity kills. We know that. That's why you've been training people since the 1980s to be healthy and try to make me healthy one day as well. It's important. All right. And one other thing I want to note here, if I'm not mistaken, I've been seeing promotions here on this network for your television program.
I have joined the RAV team. Real America's Voice was so gracious to give me my own show called Faith and Freedom. It's Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. and I interview everybody from Charlie Kirk to Kirk Cameron to Anna Paulina Luna, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who you just mentioned. She's a friend of mine from Naples, Florida. Representative Byron Donalds. So I do politics and faith and health in every show.
Yeah, I think Byron's
Go ahead. There's this guitar player that I interview a lot. He's really good at guitar. Yeah.
Kind of a noisy fella. Kind of a noisy fella from what I recall. Yeah, kind of a noisy fella. Well, congratulations on the new program. Congratulations on the new book. And honestly, we are so glad that you found a path to health. And so the book is Killer House. Go ahead and put it back up there so the folks can see it. Killer House from Charmaine Nugent.
It's available on Amazon June 22nd. June 22nd. Everybody go to Amazon, grab a book. The only reason why, Steve, I want to sell a lot of copies of this is because I am 150% positive it will change people's lives. It's going to put a new perspective on health and healing. Nobody wants to go to the doctor these days. So I give you other tips about how to be healthy, how to get a good night's sleep, how to have more energy by doing simple things like getting rid of Downy fabric softener, getting rid of scented candles, putting your electronics 7 feet away from your bed when you sleep at night, things like that will help you feel better overall.
Simple things. And people don't go to the doctor anymore because a lot of doctors and a lot of people's minds lost a whole lot of credibility between 2020 and today because of everything that went on. So there's some truth to that. Again, Killer House out in a few days. Charmaine, good to talk to you again. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Steve. Take care.
All right. There she is. Good friend for a long time. Do enjoy her. Coming up after the break, the media already releasing lists of foods that are expected to be in short supply soon. Joe Reek from My Patriot Supply will join us with ways you can get prepared. It's straight ahead on AVL. right, well, welcome back. It was a bad year for food shortages in 2022. Categories included eggs, baby formula was hit hard. 23 could see its own batches of food shortages. I mean, if you keep listening to the food reports from Argentina and China, there's some rough water ahead. Here are a few of the products that are likely to become harder to find on store shelves in the near future. Corn, pretty major issue considering corn is an ingredient in so many American products, including chips, salad dressing, even soda. Bread, flour and wheat shortages is likely on the horizon, largely because of the ongoing war in Ukraine and problems again there in that part of the world. Russia's having a drought. Vegetable oil. This is due to a few factors, including Indonesia's decision to halt the export of palm oil and continuing droughts around the globe. Baby formula. You thought this one was done, right? But the ongoing baby formula shortage is expected to last through the spring of 23. And canned pet food. Not because of the food itself, but because of aluminum can shortage. Canned pet food should be harder to come by this year as well. Many people in America waking up to the fact that our food supply is very fragile and depends on so many things going just exactly right. It wouldn't be a bad idea to prepare for emergencies right now. As a matter of fact, be pretty smart. Joe Reek from My Patriot Supply joining me with some ideas to get you and your family prepared. Joe, good to see you again.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, there are some challenges around the globe people aren't paying attention to, and I just saw, and this should shock everybody, cocoa stocks are in real trouble because of weather problems in Africa. So the price of chocolate could be going through the roof. I mean, if there's going to be an emergency, Joe, that could be it.
Everybody loves their chocolate, their chocolate, Steve. But I'll tell you what, there are so many factors that go into the food that we have on our grocery shelves. I mean, from supply chain issues to how farmers are fertilizing their crops, there are a lot of factors, and it affects Americans in their pocketbook. And we see those factors still happening. In fact, it's been predicted that we're still going to continue to see shortages on this upcoming harvest season just because of the shortages of fertilizer. In fact, like I've mentioned before, the USDA has come out and said that we can expect about a third of the crops that were planted are going to be unable to be harvested. And so what that means for us is we're going to continue, again, to see prices going up on the things that we enjoy day to day, especially on items such as corn, wheat, and those other things that we need that are in so many of our foods. And so what I would recommend and what we try to do here at My Patriot Supply is try to educate families that how fragile of a system that we are, and that it doesn't take much to take those steps to get prepared. We have items available to help families get better prepared so that way you can have the peace of mind of knowing that if anything were to happen to you or your family, you can still provide them good quality food at a great price. And this is food that has up to a 25-year shelf life. You get it, you put it away, and you forget about it.
Give me an idea of some of the things, somebody buys a 30-day supply for a family of four, just as an average purchase. 30-day supply, family of four, because I think, 2-week supplies, look, if you get hit by a bad tornado or a hurricane like Katrina or whatever it might be, a natural disaster, you could be without for a lot longer than you would ever anticipate. So I kind of think it should be a little bit longer. So what would that consist of? What would somebody find? They tear open the package, they look at it, it's My Patriot Supply, what do they find?
Well, with My Patriot Supply, you're going to have over 21 different meal varieties. And these are meals that most people are used to eating. These are meals like pasta Alfredo. These are meals like lasagna, spaghetti, honey wheat bread. All these different items are inside of our packages, and these are meals that you simply prepare simply by adding water. You let it sit and simmer for 10 to 15 minutes, and you're going to have dinner ready in that time frame. And it's very, very simple to do. It doesn't take a lot of preparation. Again, all you need is hot water. You put it in there and you're good to go. With the 21 different meal varieties, you're not going to get stuck or get sick of eating the exact same thing over and over and over. It's a large variety of foods that a lot of people are, again, used to eating. And I'll be honest with you, if you were to taste some of our meals and not know that it's emergency food, a majority of people probably couldn't even tell that they're eating emergency food. It is that good.
Well, and that's important, and you guys take great care in selecting the best products possible. How is it stored? I think it's important for people to understand what is the process by which you take tomatoes or ground beef or whatever it is that you put into your meals. What is the process you go through to get it ready to ship to me so it can sit on the shelf and be good for 25 years?
Well, after these items have been freeze-dried, so we remove the oxygen and water content from these processes or from these items, and then we'll put together the actual meals with these dry ingredients. The process that makes it last up to the 25 years is the removal of the oxygen as well as the water content, and then we place it into a 4 mil Mylar pouch. And this pouch is going to prevent oxygen from penetrating inside of there, which causes the meals to spoil. We then take those pouches and put them inside of these large plastic pails. That adds a little bit of extra protection to those pouches. And then once you get these buckets, you simply take them out of the boxes that they arrive in. They're plain cardboard boxes, so it is very discreet. And you put it in a nice, cool place. Leave it indoors, ambient room temperature, and you're going to have that peace of mind and that security that your food's going to be protected. You don't have to actively rotate that out. Yeah, you don't have to rotate out the cans anymore. You don't have to worry about your investment, your food spoiling over time, because again, 25 years, it's a long time.
It is a long time. Joe, real quickly, the website where people can find out more.
They can go to mypatriotsupply.com. We also have special pricing for preparedwithrav.com as well. It's the final days where you can save up to $200 on our 3-month supply packages. You get 2,000 calories per day, 21 different meal varieties. It's our best-selling offer that we have, and now's the final days to save that $200 when you visit preparedwithrav.com.
Preparedwithrav.com. Joe Reek, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Steve. You guys be safe.
All right, quick break. We'll see what's wonderful about America and have your question of the day as well. We'll be right back. What makes America wonderful? Well, I like to share a great story every day with you to make sure I put a smile on your face. So many serious conversations to have, but you have to take a deep breath from time to time. So Americans have always been a curious bunch of people, and that curiosity has led to many great inventions that have made the world a better place, not just America, but the world. 2 years ago, little Hugo Deans from Pennsylvania found some red-colored seeds in the ground by an ant's nest in his backyard. Hugo was excited. He didn't know ants collected seeds, and his excitement grew when he showed his father, Andrew, an entomologist at Penn State, who didn't know they did that either. The two bug enthusiasts didn't know at the time, but Hugo's discovery was a scientific discovery of dramatic complexity, a codependent relationship between oaks, ants, and wasps that highlights the incredible interconnectedness of our world. The discovery connects two separate plant-insect relationships, the first being a wasp species inducing oak trees to create galls, or small protective bubbles of leaf matter around their eggs, which they lay on the leaves, a clever trick that saves the wasp the hassle of nest guarding. The second, a phenomenon of seed dispersal by ants. Certain wild North American plants produce edible appendages on their seeds, which attract ants who, in turn, bring the seeds back to their nests where they can germinate in safety. What Hugo found, and Andrew recently elaborated in the journal American Naturalist, is that these two behaviors were linked, and that the godfather-like wasps were not only manipulating the oaks, but the ants as well. As to this interaction started, that is something that the team, equipped with a new study grant, will continue working on. Hugo, now 10 years old, is proud he was able to contribute to such an important advancement. They're all working together. You see that? All right, so the question today, Hillary Clinton called support for Donald Trump disturbing. What do you have to say about that? Hillary Clinton's disturbing to me. Millie Nelson writes, coming from a scumbag that had over 100 people murdered? Laughable. Nancy Ray, she is a disturbed person. Pam Dendlinger, she's disturbing and delusional. Tori Gillespie Valdivi is the fact that she's not incarcerated for her crimes is what's disturbing. Amen, Tori. Rita Carr, soon all will see his support. Ollie Olson, such hubris. Dean Ann Bentley says this, Hillary Clinton should have been in prison for all she's done, including Benghazi with Obama. Sickening the way she's gotten away with all this BS way, way too long, her, Biden, Obama, and others. All right, we'll leave it there. Remember, you can always drop me a line. Tell me how wonderful I am. Do that at SteveGruber.com. I appreciate it. I'll take all the love I can get. SteveGruber.com. Drop me a note. Tell me all about it. And then join me tomorrow morning for the Steve Gruber Show to kick off live programming on RAB. And I'll see you tomorrow for America's Voice Live. Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. First Lady Joe Biden kicked off her husband's re-election effort last night by blasting Republicans as MAGA maniacs. She was in Los Angeles as her husband's substitute and claimed that if Donald Trump wins, chaos will return to Washington.